Well, hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. Where we take a look at these markets, we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each day asking ourselves just one question: what happened today? And what does it tell us about the coming ones? I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube under the channel L.A. Little. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Each time I push content, you'll get notification. Stay up with what's going on and read these markets on a daily basis along with me with a neoclassical view. Best way of seeing what's really happening, and I think after a few shows and a few sessions, you'll probably agree. Here's gold today, big spike up. That comes off of a big move in the dollar. We'll look at the dollar here in a bit. If you look at gold, and what was the other one? The Nikkei was up. Actually, I think the Nikkei is that last night or tonight? I can't quite tell. Most things were down, though. We were looking last night for a down market. That is what we got. And so we pushed down today. It wasn't huge. Matter of fact, the NDX barely gave it up, 0.14%. That was because we started getting earnings out of the chip sector, and the chips were on fire. We actually had Intel down 3%, flip around, and end up almost 2% higher, I believe, today. That's an indication of what we had. LLTC also up last night, about 5% today. SOX was up strong. And we had, after the bell tonight, was Xilinx, and Xilinx was up 4 or 5%. So chips on fire. What was weak? Financials. The big banks came out pretty weak. JP Morgan totally missed. Wells Fargo did okay, but the regionals were weak across the board. Overseas down, down in Asia, also down on the DAX. And so that was pretty much the picture. Let's take a look at the charts and let's decide what we got from here. So we'll start with the S&P 500. Now, even though we had a down day, I have to say it wasn't a bad day. And the reason for that is you came back on a pullback, but you're not getting huge volume expansion. And it's starting to matter already. And the reason it's starting to matter is you're coming back into the swing point high, into it, doing a test of it. And that swing point high, the test of it, that's a bullish retest regenerate. So in other words, you get over it, and you're coming back into it and trying to test into it. Now, it's a little bit different in that this is lined up after, in other words, it was broken here and then retested under, and it's already broken once. But as it comes back into it, it's a noteworthy, because we don't have a better place, it's a noteworthy place to look and see how it performs. What's more interesting to me is not so much that particular bar, but the bars up underneath it, and that's just what we talked about last night. It's this zone, if it gets back into that. But how strong this market is going to have a lot to do with how this fades back in or doesn't. So in other words, we came up, we had a big, strong push higher, unrelenting, right? Just like we had back here. And then you come off of that hard and deep, right? Like this. So let's just say it comes back this deep. That's a bad situation, right? That says it's much weaker than you'd like it to be if you're bullish. What's the strongest case? Where it gives you almost nothing back. And why is that? Because if in fact it takes off and it breaks over this and does a breakout, right, then you can get an extension that's much more extended, right? You know, the A to B, B to C is much more, the C to D is much more extended, because these are typically about the same size in terms of percentages. And so how this thing comes back and how it fades back in or doesn't fade back in is going to be a big deal. Let's see, the close here, the low was 1990.73, and this is the one I was going to look at. That was 1989, so it didn't quite get into it. Look at the volumes here, right, on this bar that's coming back into this one. Look at the volumes there compared to the ones over here, right? There's a big difference. They're coming back, and there's not a lot of sellers, is my point. Now, the other thing that may be happening this week at least is that you've got options expiration, and with the options expiration, we know that the puts are numerous. It's almost as if, there's been a lot written about it. It's almost as if everybody expects a crash this week. Well, folks, if that many people got puts out there, believe me, those arbitrageurs are not going to let it crash. They're going to do everything in their power to expire those worthless. That happens on Friday, so we're going to get some artificial support probably as a result of that. And, that's a Benny, right, for anybody that wants to be long this market. If we look at the Dow, I don't look at the Dow that much, but if we look at the Dow, the Dow actually came back, got into the swing point high, has less volume. So the Dow is doing the same sort of thing that we see on the S&P 500. If we move on down the list here, the NASDAQ comes back, volume expands a little bit, but what it's coming into actually has better volume. Nothing really here until it gets back deeper. The one that was interesting today was the NDX, and the NDX barely gave anything up. So this actually got under back over, has a little bit more volume though, and same sort of thing here. Again, it just doesn't want to give much up. Now the one that's the weakest is the Russell. That's the one we talked about quite a bit last night, and the question there was, would this thing come back deep or not? And it is coming back a little bit deeper than you would want, and so this is the one to really watch. The first area we talked about was in here, right? That's right at the top of that support zone that's shown on the charts. The second area is right into there. This area here is the key area as this comes back. If it comes back and it gets into that and under that, then that's a problem. And you really want to kind of see it hold this top. It's 1133 is the number. It's trading at 1137. So indexes, actually not a bad day, even though we started to get the rollover. And the rollover we're getting is everywhere. It's not just here. It's across the board. And what I'm talking about here is if you look at these, pushes up, right? I've got the IYR up. They're just kind of rolling over, right? And you're seeing this, in almost all of these. For example, if we look at the transports, you see the same sort of pattern here, right? Coming back, rolling over. A few others, right? I mean, actually, the XLF is a good example. The XLF was weak. You can see it even more pronounced there. But then we had some that were starting to bounce, and that was off the dollar, right? So here you had the big shoot up off the XLB, and now a little bounce. Energy doing the same thing, and so forth. The one I would draw your attention to is SOX. Remember, I was talking about the SOX being strong. Big breakout today, volume expands, right, squeezes over the top, and so here you actually have some juice in this thing, breaks two swing point highs, and if we bring over the weekly chart and pull it up here and look at it, this one is actually coming back in to do the bearish retest regen now, and it looks to me like this is going to try to push right up to the top of that bearish retest regen. I can draw it in here for you so you can see it more clearly, but it's right into there, and so you're into it. Usually you got real close here once before as it came up. Usually, after 6 bars, you don't get a push that deep, but given that it almost hit it already, it looks to me like it's going to push deeper up into there, and this is a legit breakout on the daily time frame. Although it's still, in the context of a longer-term stop, it's still just a bounce. That's the sectors. Overseas looks about the same. I didn't see much there. Well, the one thing that's going to happen now is you're going to see the overseas indexes get hit off of a weaker dollar, which is going to make those currencies stronger. Here's the dollar. Dollar breaks under the swing point low and gets into the big gap down bar that hasn't been tested. And so dollar coming back, if we pull the weekly over on the dollar, you can see here this is coming back after that low. There was volume on it. It looks like it's going to go after 24.20, sitting at 24.45, so another % down. That looks to me like it's almost impossible not to peg it. Now, if you're one of those classical guys and you're looking at this and you're doing all this business, oh yeah, I guess you can do that, and you can say, okay, it can get down to here. I don't pay that much attention to that. I'm much more interested in what's it going to do at places that are significant. This is the one that's significant. It just broke a swing point low here. right? So that's a break on a weekly, assuming it holds it on the weekly, right? That's a break. Potentially breaking another one there, right? And then if you go back to the daily, right, you're going to break them here also. So you're going to get multiple breaks on multiple time frames. That should carry if in fact that is true. And what's that going to do? Well, that's going to put juice into the commodities, and you saw it today with the gold stocks. You got a lot of shorts built up in these stocks, and they're having to cover. And so you got a nice big spike up. You're back into the bearish retest regen. If you look at the volumes, last week wasn't bad. This week is going to be good as well. We're 3 days in, so it looks to me like we're going to do, what is that, 241, and we did 395, 241.70. That's going to be about it's going to be about the same volume, 370, 380. So it's certainly enough. It's coming back into a big bar. It's got 460 on it though. So you're going to get a spike up, and then we'll see what it wants to do on the retrace. But yeah, you got a spike up, and it looks like the dollar is going to carry to the downside on the weekly charts for at least 2 to 3 bars. That's usually the way it works. And if that's true, these gold stocks should continue to try to rock higher as well. So that's the way those shape up. Let's look at the euro. Let me grab that one. Here you can see the euro breaking out. I'm going to go after that big bar, and it's not into it yet, but it's going to try to go after it. And let's see what the yen looks like. Now the yen's been at a big consolidation, and it got over a swing point high, 2 of them as well. And on a weekly chart, the yen's got that big high volume spike up there as well. So these all look like they're going to try to trade, and if that's true, that's going to try to put pressure on domestic markets in those currencies. And so if we pop over to the world markets and we start with the DAX, we should see the DAX pressured off of that. I didn't have volume today, but I don't think it was heavy. And I don't know that for sure, but I don't believe it was. Big bar here, it's coming back to is 98.61. France, that one also coming back into the big bar. And that probably is going to try to come into these 45.96 roughly. If I look over at Asia, in particular Japan, Japan probably going to feel pressure of the yen again. That one's going to come back. It's going to come back into this area probably. 1775 or 17,750 and 17,700. So somewhere in that range looks to be where that one's headed. As far as what's going to happen with our markets tomorrow, if we pop back over and take a look at them, it looks to me like they're actually going to try to bounce tomorrow. They may get a little bit more pressure off of the European market if the European market trades down overnight. But the way this came back and what it's already coming back into, looks to me like it's probably going to try to do, just like we saw in the XLB, it's going to do a little bounce back up. And, then we're going to see, if they can actually, do something about the sellers or not. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing just hang out up here this week. And the reason I say that is because you have the options expiration, which is going to serve to try to keep this thing from trading lower. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing just hang up here and not give it up. In other words, not come down. And then maybe next week you might get some sort of a more serious pullback. But we'll take it one day at a time. That's what it looks like tonight. As always, I thank you for joining me. You have yourself a great one. Tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA wrap. And I actually had a couple of viewer questions. I'll catch those tomorrow. Until next time, take care. Good night.